Liturgical calendar, today is the day given for the manifestation of God through the baptism of Jesus, Epiphany, the season of manifestations. We saw last week how God was manifested to the three wise guys, or however many magi there were. This week we look at the baptism of Jesus, and next week Dennis McMillan is going to help us to think about is it the miracle of Cana? The miracle at the wedding feast of Cana. We'll look at that manifestation of God. Kind of a slowly unfolding of God's presence in the world. But today let's talk about baptism. Now, how many of you all in this room have been baptized by me? That I actually got to be the pastor officiating at your baptism. Thank you, Cody, very much. Well, if you have been baptized by me, you know the shtick. I've got 5 images of water that I think take us through the 5 essential concepts of what baptism is. So, you can go along with me. The first one is cleansing. Just like water washes away things that are dirty, it also cleanses our soul. Baptism cleanses our soul. 2, water is nourishing. Just like a plant that's starting to fade, needs a little bit of oomph, some water helps nourish it. The third thing is initiating. It's like a ritual of initiation. In the school that I went to, throwing people into the river was part of the rite of initiation. And also, we are initiated into the church, this great church of Jesus Christ, throughout the ages and all around the world. The baptismal waters initiate us. But we come to, now those 3 things, let me say, are very much a part of any tradition for baptism. Our congregation focuses on immersion as a baptismal rite. But there are other traditions that they don't need more water than is in this pitcher. And I want to say here and now that anyone who is baptized by sprinkling is baptized in the name of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that is as valid as any baptism. And certainly the concepts of cleansing, nurturing, and nourishment, and initiation can be found in that image. Well, one of the things those of us who do immersion baptism have down when it comes to imagery are the final 2. And that is the death of Jesus and the life of Jesus. That in the baptismal waters we die to our old selves, and there is that moment of hesitation as your head goes under the water. Where the possibility, the far-off possibility comes to your mind of dying. But then immediately you are raised to new life. You participate in the resurrection as much as you participate in the dying. Now, I've talked about that, all those things before. And as I thought today about what baptism, what all those things together meant, it was about renewal. Renewal. And one of the things that is constantly brought to me in baptism is, I just feel like that moment of baptism is so far behind me, it's so far back that I just need to do it again. Well, if baptism was like that, then we would need to have pretty much an assembly line through here. Cody, we're going to need to put a door on this side, okay? Because we're just going to have people coming in and out, because 7 days a week, 12 months a year, 365, because I don't know about you, the moment I walk out of this room, I am confronted with new temptations, new desires, new qualifications, new problems, new dilemmas, and if baptism was just simply a once and in that moment cleansing, it would be pretty much hard to replicate without just doing it every single day. But it's not. And that's where renewal comes in. The baptism is a place of giving you a moment in history of what renewal is, and then the rest of your life, you don't have to go back and do it again. You just need to remember that moment you came out of the baptismal waters and were renewed. So what I thought today is I would talk a little bit about how do we keep that renewal of baptism going day in and day out. And whether or not you've been baptized or not, that's really not the question. We're not trying to do people who are in and people who are out. Really, it's a question. Renewal is something that all of us yearn for. All of us long for. So I thought of two things. Renewal is a matter of perspective and practice. Perspective and practice. Now perspective, let's talk about that. To be renewed, I think there's two perspectives you have to have. One is about your giftedness. We get burned out when we try to do things that we aren't qualified to do, or skilled to do, or that just aren't our passions, just aren't who we are. Now, we're in a real world, and I know all of us have to get a paycheck. All of us have to earn our way, and sometimes you end up doing things that just aren't your most wondrous gift in the world. I understand that, I get that. But here I'm talking about the big picture, and especially when we're talking about our spiritual lives. A perspective that keeps renewal in place is always looking to find who we are to be used well. Our gifts, our skills, our talents, our wisdom, how is it used well? And if we are doing things that really aren't our gift, either we need to get those gifts, go off and learn or grow, or Christian education or Bible study, Sunday school are about getting more of what you might need to be gifted in that particular way, or stop doing it. Because extending yourself beyond your skills and your gifts not only puts your spiritual soul in danger, but sometimes it puts other people in danger. I'm sure those of you who work with equipment, heavy equipment, know that if that person's not skilled, run. So are my gifts being used well, and am I called to do this? Now sometimes you might actually have the gifts, but you might not be the one called in that moment, in that place to do it. And just because you think you were all that in a bag of chips, I can't even get that out, doesn't necessarily mean you're the one called in that moment. And knowing that you're called is such a dicey thing. It's all about prayer and spiritual discernment and seeking people out to say, do you think I'm called to this? I've had conversations with some of you on the other end of the spectrum where everybody says, oh, you're called. Oh, you're called. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you definitely. And you wonder, well, I don't feel that. Now, sometimes you just kind of need to do a little spiritual discernment. Sometimes they're trying to say, I really like you, and I like what you do. But I have to tell you, that's not a calling. Just because someone likes you a whole lot, or you have a particular gift, you're a good speaker. Oh, you must be called to be a minister. No, I have the skill as a good speaker. That doesn't mean I'm called to be a minister. I might be, but I might not be. So, renewal is about perspective. Are my gifts being used well? And am I called to do this? And if we can get those more in line, we find our perspective can be renewed. But I want to spend a little more time on practices. Because, I don't know about you, but I'm a much more practical kind of person. So I'm going to go back to those 5 things that I find are kind of the images of water, which also tell us a whole lot about baptism, and come up with some practices, some practical things we can do to be renewed day in and day out, so that we don't always have to run back to the baptistry and dive in, assuming there was water in here, dive in order to find that cleansing and renewal. So the first one is cleansing. What do you already do in your life that brings cleansing? And whatever that is, do it more. I so appreciated Chrissy's, I think Chrissy, it was your, you talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is an essential act of being cleansed, both asking for it and receiving it, both offering it and taking it in. So cleansing, one of the practical practices you can do to be cleansed on an ongoing basis is to find where you're cleansed in this world. And some people find, and this is a kind of an ancient way of being cleansed of guilt or cleansed of burdens or cleansed of uncertainty, is service. Is doing something for someone else. There's nothing like seeing the joy in the eyes of someone that you have just helped do something for your soul to suddenly get things in perspective. And for the healing waters of cleansing waters to come pouring over you. So sometimes we have to get outside of ourselves. So the first practical thing I'm telling us to do to be renewed on an ongoing basis is to find cleansing and do it as often as possible. The second thing is nourishment. What nourishes your mind, body, and spirit? Seek those things out and do more of it. And those things that don't, do less of it. Richard gave me this really wonderful CD of speakers at a conference. And one of the things I took from listening to this great CD was this one man said, I figured out my 5 essential tasks. The 5 things in my world that give, essentially he was saying, nourish me. That I do and I want to do more of. And every single day, I do those 5 things. Even if it's only for a minute, even if it's only a little tiny bit, or maybe it's a lot. And he had figured out what his 5 things were. And he had them all, they rhymed, or they had, some kind of really wonderful acrostic or something like that. I can't come up with that. But I have figured out what are 5 things that if I did every day, I would be nourished. You're the first people ever to hear this. Well, I guess my best friend heard this, but other than that. Reading, being physical, writing, experiencing music, and creating. And my goal for my 50th year and beyond is to try and do all 5 of those things every single day. To read something, and by read I don't mean a Facebook post or an obituary in the Plain Dealer. Reading something of substance, an article, or a letter from a friend, or I've got several books on my shelf that some of you have given me that I haven't yet read. Being physical. You know me, I'm a very physically active person. If I spend a whole day behind a computer or sitting in a chair, I really haven't been my whole self. And so, especially getting to the gym or jogging or just being outside, doing something physical. Writing. And I don't mean writing a newsletter for Cody, a newsletter article for Cody, although I know I've got to get those written. The 12th was yesterday. But I'm talking about writing something of substance. A letter to a friend, or a poem, or something like that. Now this is my list, this isn't your list. You get to make your own list of 5 essential things. But I'm giving you an example. Experiencing music. To actually intentionally put a piece of music on. Or choir has given me that, once again, is that once a week I know I can at least sing to the glory of God. And creating something. Whether it's creating some fun PowerPoint slides on the computer, or something handmade, or creating something. So those are my 5. What are your 5? What are things that give you nourishment? That's a way to find renewal, is to find where you're fed and to do it as often as possible. The third thing is initiation. How do we find renewal in initiation? Isn't the whole point of an initiation is doing it for the first time? Doing it at the beginning? We're initiated when we're freshmen at high school. Sometimes nicely and sometimes not so nicely. We're initiated at a job. You kind of have a probationary period where you're trained and you do things like that. So how can you do that again and again and again? Well, what I thought was, what if you approach something that you found that you did have the gifts for, and that you were called to do, but now it's just kind of become old. It just kind of become What if we approach those things as if we had just started again? What would that mean? What it might mean is you might need some training again. Because when we're brand new at a job or brand new at a school, there's a whole lot of things to learn. So maybe it's just you need to go back and get some of those skills honed up. Or maybe you're doing the right thing, you just need a new place to do it. And I was thinking about Katie on this one. She gets to be in a new place to do it. She's going to be initiated into San Diego and all the things that go along with that. What if what you're doing is great, you just need to do it in a new place? And you know, I even mean, that might be church. Kind of dangerous to say, isn't it? What if you feel called to go to church? What if you feel moved to be at church, but it's just kind of blah now? Maybe change the church? I don't know. Maybe new people to do it with. You used to have a great jogging program, but you know, everybody, they whine and they complain while you're jogging, and you don't want to do that. Oh, say, sorry guys, I'm moving on, I'm getting some new folks. I'm gonna reinitiate myself in this thing that I already love to do, that gives me renewal and new life, and just start again with a new set of people. Or maybe you just don't have the right equipment. One of the things that we learn in church life is we're oftentimes asking people to do things that they're called to do and that they've got the skills, and then we forget to tell them where to get the things they need to do it. So maybe what you're experiencing in your life is that you just don't have the right equipment to do it. I love taking photographs, but I hate taking those little rolls of film and nobody knows what they are anymore, and getting them developed, and it costs so much. Maybe you need a new camera. Maybe you can get a digital camera. So maybe it's, I hate to overemphasize things, but maybe it's just the equipment that you might need. Okay, so we talked about the practices of cleansing, the practices of nourishing, the practices of initiating, now dying. The practice of dying, obviously I'm not asking you to commit harakiri or anything like that. But it's the toughest one of all, as it would be with baptism. What needs to die in your life? In order for you to have that ongoing renewal, what do you need to cut off? What needs, whether gently or fast and furiously, needs to be gone, be rid of in your life? Those of us with addictions know very well what we need to leave behind. Don't we? And there are places and people that can help you do that. Sometimes it's a relationship. You know, it's been draining for so long. You've tried everything. You've done all these other things. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's a responsibility that's burning you out. And we do this a lot in church. We try to make this a permission-giving church, where if you say, I enjoy being an elder, and I'm glad you asked me back to be an elder, but you know, I don't want to be an elder my entire life like this. I think I'm going to try other things. Okay, great. We need to be that kind of congregation that allows that. Or I need a sabbatical year. I just want to come and sit in the pews. It's so hard for churches to do that because we feel like the only way that we can grow is to make everybody burned out. No, that's the only way to die. You need to be the kind of congregation, and you need to find the kinds of places, whether it's a club, or it's a school, or it's a neighborhood, or whatever, where there are people around you, allow you to die to old things, to let go of the way you were, to become something new, obviously. And maybe getting back to things. I gave you permission to get things before. Now I'm going to give you permission to give things away. I know for 1 year in Lent, the only thing I did was to find something in my house and give it away. Sometimes I needed to throw it away. Usually they were clothes from the 1970s, but we won't go into that. They were torn and worn and way out of... Remember Starsky and Hutch? Okay, we won't go any farther. Some things you need to throw away. Some things you need to give as gifts, re-gifting. That's a powerful dying, is letting go of those things to someone that you can actually, that you see the thrill in their eyes. Oh my God, I needed a cheese cutter. Sometimes there are things that you just need out of your life quickly, and you bring that bag of clothes to the clothing center, or you go to the Westside Catholic Center and say, these are great appliances, don't talk to me about who gave them to me, and all of the things, the memories that go along with it, just take it. Getting rid of things. I did that every day as best I could the whole Lent. I have to tell you, I felt like a brand new man. Where's that box in your attic that you haven't opened since the last move? And you think, oh, I've got to keep it because there's very important stuff in there. I don't know what it is, but there's very important stuff in there. Just give it away. And finally, resurrection. What needs to be born anew in your life? If we've done all these other things, if we've done cleansing, and if we've found things that nourish our souls and our minds and our bodies, if we've started over again in the place just right by initiating things, and then we've cut things out, we've died to things, what needs to be resurrected, born anew in your life? Are there healthy practices? Sounds a lot like New Year's resolutions. I don't care. It's a good thing nonetheless. What healthy practices do you want to start? What new relationships do you want to begin? And I'm not just talking about love relationships. What if you really need a friend that you can trust to talk to? And just none of the friends that you've got really you can be that honest with. They're overwhelmed themselves, or they gossip too much or something like that. Then spend the next few months, years, looking for that kind of friend that you can share honestly with. Maybe there are new activities. My best friend in the world, you all know, is Mary Kay Toddy. And she got a divorce and needed to start all over. And one of the things she decided to do was to resurrect things that she had never done before. She learned how to fence. Now you have to understand, you all have met Mary Kay. She's short, she's beautiful, but you just don't look at her and go, you're a fencer. You know, it's a sword person kind of thing. Yeah. She loved it. She took up contra dancing, which is this kind of a old-fashioned form of dancing in line. She loved it. Just recently, she decided to tat. She's doing tatting. I have to buy for her this expensive silk stuff so that she can tat and make these beautiful kind of, they look like lacy things. She is my role model for resurrecting yourself by starting new things. And then what new perspectives do you need to have in your life? You know, you've been looking at the world in the same way for a long time, whether it's out of hurt, whether it's out of grief, whether it's out of a sense of ego, whether it's out of a sense of, I don't know what. Annie Main tells us to open a new window, open a new door, travel a new highway you've never tried before you find your adult fellow, punching the same clock, walking the same tightrope as everyone on the block, whatever you need to be. Anyway, I can't remember the rest of the song, you know that. But anyway, what new perspective, and what a better time than on the day that we celebrate Jesus' baptism to commit ourselves to resurrection this day. So, renewal is all about perspectives and practices. And some perspectives we need to get under control is making sure that our gifts are being used well, and that we're called to do the things that we're actually doing. And some of the practices that we could work on are practices of cleansing ourselves, practicing of nourishing ourselves, practicing initiating ourselves again into familiar ways of doing things, but with a new beginning, dying to things that need to be let go of and cut off, and resurrecting ourselves to brand new things. I think if we do some of these things, we will not have that need to jump into this baptistry and make Monique have to clean it again and again and again every week. But instead, wherever we walk in the world, whether we're wandering as far away as San Diego or we're just walking down the block to Whitman Avenue, we will be able to be renewed again and again and again. For isn't that what Jesus' baptism is all about? So as we sing our final hymn, I invite us all to renew ourselves by committing ourselves again to Jesus Christ. But if you're looking for a place for that kind of renewal to happen,